There are two main aspects to our business. There's a lot of public relations and a lot of office work. Well, even though I'm currently an investment advisor, I originally went to college for computer science, so I have no problem sitting in front of a desk, in front of a computer in an office all day long. I'm also good with research and development and that sort of thing, so when we combined our companies, it made sense for me to do the office aspect. Don, on the other hand, is more of a people person. He is extremely passionate about the things that he cares about, which you'll notice this evening when he's talking. He also likes to talk to people and help them and that sort of thing. Apparently he doesn't mind driving 40,000 plus miles a year, which is great for me because I don't have to do that anymore. So, but anyway, you can see how we were able to utilize each other's strengths, and over the years our clients have told us they really appreciate the level of service that we're able to provide because of that. I am the only person that our clients talk to, and I'm in the office about 95+% of the time. So, you know, that allows us to build a nice relationship over the years, and that they, as I said, they tell us they really appreciate that level of service. So, as a matter of fact, I want to show you something real quick. If you go to bbb.org, that is the Better Business Bureau website. If you go to ratings, type in ratings, you'll notice they have 14 different ratings, and of course the top rating being an A+. If you type in RDS Retirement Design Solutions, you'll notice a few things. Number one, you'll notice we do have an A+ rating. Number two, years in business 25, and the whole reason I like to bring up the screen, 0 complaints ever. That's hard to do, I promise. so we're very, very proud of that. As I said, it's hard to please a lot of people over a long period of time, and so we want to make sure you're aware of that. We're also regulated for our securities license through the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC, and we have never had a complaint with the SEC. We're also regulated in multiple states for our insurance license, and we have never had a complaint with the Department of Insurance in any state. So, again, I don't say that to boast, but want to make sure you're aware of our record because we're proud of it. So, as a matter of fact, going back to the Better Business Bureau, they actually contacted us a few years back, many years back actually now, and asked us if we'd like to be one of 7 companies in 7 different industries that they were going to feature on a quick 30-second commercial that they ran in Atlanta on Fox 5 in Atlanta, so you may have actually seen this. But anyway, we were the company they chose in our industry, in the financial industry, and of course we were proud that they did that, and so we said yes. They ran that for a few months, and I'm going to show that to you real quick, and then we'll move on.
You can identify reliable companies by looking. Find them at bbb.org.
Cobb Medical Transcription, Comfort Control Heating and Air, Jameson and Molded Roofing and Remodeling, RDS Retirement Design Solutions, Southern Rooftops, The Art of Home Improvement, Willard Wrecker Service.
Find all sorts of reliable companies at bbb.org and start with trust.
All right, so I want to go over a few housekeeping items with you real quick. There's going to be 2 segments to our presentation this evening. In the middle, we'll take about a 5-minute break to give you a chance to refill your drinks, use the restroom if you need to. If you haven't figured out where the restrooms are, they're at the end of the hall. You can either take a right, they're on the right, or take a left, they're on the left. As far as after the second half of our presentation is over, that's when the buffet will be available. If you haven't had it before, it's delicious. They have filet mignon and grilled salmon with salad and dessert. Everything is fantastic, and then wine. So anyway, once you're eating, we're finished. So when you're finished eating, feel free to leave at any time. But also keep in mind that we do have the room for the evening. So if you'd like to stick around and enjoy yourself, talk, ask questions, that sort of thing, feel free to do that as well. Okay. As far as questions, we have tried in the past multiple times to take questions during our presentation, and every time, inevitably, what we find is that we never get to eat. So unfortunately, we can't take any questions during our presentation. However, if you have a question, we absolutely want to make sure that we give you an answer. So if you look in your folder on the right side, there's a section that has some scratch paper, and it says workshop questions on it. That'll give you a place to write down anything you do think of, and then of course we'll make sure we can get you an answer to that. Please don't try to remember your questions. If you have one, just go ahead and jot it down. And Don and I will actually wait to eat our dinner this evening until all of you are finished eating so that we can come around maybe while you're having dessert and see if you have any questions. So definitely write those down. But as I said, unfortunately, we can't take any questions during the presentation, or I promise you we'll never get to eat. As far as notes, we have taken the liberty of taking notes for you. You don't have these yet. I'll hand these out at the end. But this is 3 pages of notes taken essentially as if you were a master note taker. And the reason I say that is because almost 100% of what you'll see on the screens this evening will be in the notes. We hand those out at the end, and on the back of the notes, there's actually a glossary of terms. So we're going to use some terms this evening you may or may not be familiar with. If you're not, you can probably find them on the back of that. So we will hand those out at the end. We've had a lot of great feedback from people that came to our presentation over the years that said that they really felt like because they knew the notes were coming later, that they could feel comfortable to keep their focus on the screen and on the presenter and on the topic at hand, as opposed to writing a note and then we switch topics on them while they're writing a note, and then they finish that and try to figure out what the heck we're talking about. So if you still want to take notes, by all means, feel free to use that scratch paper, but I will hand those out at the end, and that should be sufficient. If you have your phones with you, please turn them off or put them on silent, whatever you need to do, just so they don't make any noise during the presentation. Obviously, we appreciate that. And then we do have to make an important legal notice that we are neither accountants or attorneys. We will talk about some things this evening that may make you inclined to talk to one of those, and if that's the case, we'll certainly help point you in the right direction. But we do have to make a legal notice that we are neither accountants or attorneys. As you probably noticed on the mailer, the invitation you received in the mail, there's absolutely nothing sold here this evening. And I say that because I want to make sure you simply sit back, relax, and enjoy. Don is a lot more entertaining than I am. No pressure, Don. So he's going to do the bulk of the presentation. I'll come back up at the end and finish off the last topic and close us out. But I'm going to go ahead and bring him up now. So if y'all would help me give him a warm welcome.
Well, that was mighty warm. I didn't earn it, but I'll take it anyway. Speaking of temperature, how's the temperature, ladies? Anybody freezing cold? Wow, that never happens. I always say ladies because those guys don't care, right? We're always hot, at least I am. I'll be in the house in, shorts and a t-shirt. My wife's sitting over there in her blanket, bundled up, shivering. So anyway, we've got a lot of useful and helpful information to share with you folks this evening. You're going to enjoy yourselves. You're going to be very glad you came to our seminar, I assure you of that. A very short period of time to do it in from our perspective, so we'll do the best we can to get all the information in the time that we have. Like Shane said, please make sure you write down your questions and we'll do our best to get those answered at the end. If we don't get around to every table, sometimes we get the talking to the table, we get locked up there for a while, we can't get around to every table. Please don't get discouraged. When you leave, if you still have questions, Shane is your guy. He's, like he said, he's in the office 90+% of the time. We do that on purpose. So take advantage of him. He's very helpful and available. He's very accessible, I should say. He's very busy, so you'll probably get his voicemail a lot of times, but don't let that discourage you. Leave him a message, and you'll be very impressed how quickly the guy gets back to you. Our clients tell me that all the time. I know he's very conscientious about customer service. The guy leaves to go to the post office for 20 minutes, and he'll forward the office phone to his cell phone because he hates people getting the voicemail. So you'll find him to be able to answer any kind of question you have. I do most of the talking in the seminar, just because it's just more my thing. But Shane's actually really a better person to ask the questions than I am because he's in the office dealing with a lot of things that I don't deal with. So basically, he knows everything about what I do, but I don't know everything about what he does, okay? So take advantage of him and you'll find him to be very, very helpful. So I want to go ahead and direct everyone's attention to a piece in your folder here. It's on the left side, unless you mixed it up. It should be the second piece on the left side, like right behind the bio there. At the top, it says Credentials Affiliation Supervisory, has our logo in there at the top. And please make yourself a note not to forget about this form when you get home. Shane puts that in there as a way to help you to be able to thoroughly vet us. We've learned over the years from talking to many people that a lot of people just don't know how to properly and thoroughly vet an investment advisory firm. And so we want to make sure that you know how to vet us because we're very proud of our record. We feel like the more you check us out, the better it is for us. So that should give you everything you need to really thoroughly check us out. Shane and I are both registered fiduciaries, so you might want to do some research on that term. Only about 10% of investment advisors are fiduciaries. And that's not to disparage the ones that are not. I'm sure they're all very professional and do a great job, but they're not being held to the same standard by the SEC under the scrutiny that we are with the threat of imprisonment. So it's quite a big difference there. So anyway, so like I said, take advantage of that. And then also we'd love to offer you some references. We've been coming here in this location at the Ritz for, I think this is our 14th year in a row coming here. I live up in Gainesville, kind of sort of in the country in Gainesville. I married a cowgirl, so I'm not much of a country boy myself, but I live on a 26-acre horse ranch. My wife has always been a horse girl, so happy life, happy life. So that's our little, and Shane's up in Lawrenceville, that's where our office is. So we're not far from you guys, about an hour and a half. But like I said, we've been coming here for 14 years. We do these seminars all over the Southeast. This is the only way that we advertise ourselves. We just prefer the one-on-one rather than cold TV or radio type of advertising. So we do these all over the Southeast, and we've got lots and lots of clients right here in your community that have been working with us for many years that would be more than happy to tell you what their experience has been like working with us. So please take advantage of that. Call or email Shane and ask for a few references. And we don't cherry pick our references. We put all of our clients in the office in a cycle in our system to make sure that they're not bothered too often with these reference calls. We respect their time. So he'll just give you the next 3 or 4 names in line. And I think if you call and have a few conversations like that, you'll find it very, very helpful. So take advantage of that. So we're going to move right into the seminar here. We're going to cover the 4 areas of retirement risk, the primary areas, I should say, of retirement risk. There's, of course, more than 4 out there, but for the time's sake here, we're going to cover these 4 here. So stock market volatility, outliving your money, long-term care, and the wonderful subject of taxes. Shane's going to actually cover that at the end because I can't stand talking about taxes. But anyway, we're going to start with stock market volatility. This is quite a subject. It's very volatile, as you know. Things can be great, things can be terrible. It's very hard to predict. A great segue into this conversation here is to discuss the 3 phases of our financial lifetime. We all go through this, and this is a really critical discussion. If you have a money manager that you should have already had with your money manager, or you certainly should be having, is the 3 phases. So beginning with the accumulation phase of life, you know, the working, building phase when you're building up the income and assets that you ultimately plan to retire on. And for most people that lasts about 40 to 50 years, starting at 18 or 20 and going up to retirement age. And for most folks during this phase of life, we've learned over the years that the most efficient way to invest during that phase is the old buy and hold. Just go in moderate to aggressive positions and don't watch it. Don't worry about it. Mutual funds, just passive investment. And we just learned over the years that's going to do the best job at getting you to retirement. But unfortunately, once you are approaching retirement, or especially for those of you that are already in retirement, you really need to be making a physical and mental transition over to the preservation and consumption phase. This is just common sense, right? You begin to cinch up those gains that you worked your whole life for and begin repositioning those to something that makes a lot more sense and is a lot more efficient for you to protect you during this phase of your life. But what you notice here is, if you on the screen here, is that that's unfortunately only about half the length of the first phase. Now, I hope y'all live to be 100, me too. But statistically speaking, my point is, during this phase of life, you don't necessarily have time on your side, right? For a major market meltdown and a significantly long recovery process and all that, which is something you need to be prepared for. And so if you stay invested, my point in this is, if you stay invested during this phase, the same way you were, like I just described in the first phase, that could prove to be very detrimental during this phase, all right? And then the third phase we never like to talk about, but this is the distribution phase. When you decide to step out of this life, you want to make sure everything goes to your beneficiaries in the most efficient manner possible, of course. And unfortunately, being a retirement specialist, this is something that we have to deal with pretty regularly. Shane and I are very focused. We're not a jack of all trades. We only work with folks in your walk of life. We are preservation and consumption specialists, okay? Most of your big wirehouses out there, your Edward Jones, Merrill Lynch, Raymond James, great folks, I'm not disparaging them, but they're what we call accumulation specialists. We've learned over the years that there's a lot of really good ones that can help you get to retirement, but they don't always have the most efficient tools and skills and knowledge to help you during this phase of your life, right? So anyway, so moving on, question here, this is a very important question. If you have a market portfolio and you're managing it, or you're paying a money manager, a broker, or whatever to manage that for you, a financial advisor, you want to ask yourself, is that portfolio set up to provide that growth that you hope for, certainly need and desire for inflation, protection, and all that, of course, but more importantly, during this phase of your life, mitigating drastic losses during sharp market downturns that you very much better be prepared for. Because I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, everyone knows we're overdue significantly for them. So it's ultimately going to come down to the answer to this question, to intelligent planning, right? So the common things like sufficient diversification, proper allocation, those are very important. But during this phase of your life, unlike the accumulation phase, without active management, these are of a lot less significance here. So we're going to get into that and cover that over the next few minutes as well. So at RDS, we like to kind of look at the 3 bucket system as a neat little simple way for allocation of your portfolio. So we think that it's wise for you to look at all of your money. So, you know, not your property or possessions, even if you own multiple properties, but your money. So your checking, savings, money markets, CDs, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, IRAs, 401ks, all of your money. We call that your investable assets. take that and basically divide it up between these three buckets, okay? Obviously, you want to keep very little in the cash money bucket with checking and savings and things like that because, you know, of course, you're losing money with purchasing power, and now it's like 10% a year, or probably a lot worse than that. That's just what the government's telling us. But anyway, so you want to keep that very minimal. Some people need more cash because they're buying and flipping properties or something, but for the average person, you want to keep that to a very low level there. So you want to have the lion's share of your investable assets really kind of divided between the safe money and the risk money allocations there. Okay, now as far as what percentage to what, that's an individual situation. So if we end up sitting down with you individually, we would take a holistic viewpoint looking at your entire situation. So your age combination, your income and assets, a very detailed description of your specific objectives, which will help you walk through, which are critical in our proposal process, your tax situation, your long-term care situation, to advise you individually from a customized standpoint as to what percentage should be in what, right? So, and again, that's just our opinion. You can take our advice or rearrange our advice or whatever you want to do. But we're going to cover now what is the most suitable investment option for the risk money. Now, some of you may say, well, I don't want any risk, Don. I'm tired of risk. I'm done with risk. This market is too unpredictable. I have no stomach for risk. Well, that's your prerogative. And if you can't stand it, you shouldn't be in the market. But generally speaking, we say that you want to have some of your money at risk because we just learned over many, many years, like 100 plus years, that common stock has pretty much been the only thing that has kept pace with inflation. So if you want to keep pace with inflation, you need to have some risk, but it needs to be calculated at this phase of your life, unlike in the accumulation phase. So if you talk to any retail broker out there, any of these big wirehouses like I mentioned before, Edward Jones, Merrill Lynch, whatever, this is the general answer you're going to get for this bucket. A retail portfolio of passively managed stocks and mutual funds. There are a few of them out there that will actually actively manage a portfolio, but it's hard to find those. They're very few and far between. A lot of people think that they're being actively managed because their brokers call them every quarter and having to sit down with them once a year and all that. Well, that's nice, but unless there's actual movement going on in your portfolio, that's not active management, okay? So it's better than nothing, though, don't get me wrong. But there's nothing wrong with this, okay? We're not suggesting this is bad. Right? As a matter of fact, remember, I specifically said this is exactly how you want to be invested during the accumulation phase of your life. But during this phase of your life, this can prove to be absolutely devastating. Why? Because it will typically mirror the overall markets. You say, what's wrong with that? Look at the market, it's incredible. Well, right now it is. Okay, let's take a look at it. So this is the market over the last 26 years. When I first got into business back in '96, for those of you that can't see that right there, it says 96 to 2000, or April. I actually just updated it yesterday, April 13th. So this is the S&P, which if some of you watched the Dow Jones, you could superimpose that on top of this and it looks almost identical. They're very, very similar indices. And so you can see the market's always going to go up and down, right? It never going to stop doing that, right? So we've always had these big recoveries and these big correction periods. But over the last 13 years now, 14 years, we have been on this absolute tear that we've never seen in the history of our markets, right? So the question is not a matter of if, folks, right? It's not a matter of if, it's when. The market is overdue significantly for a major, major correction, and that's fine. That's just the way the system works. The point is you want to be prepared for that. You need to be confident and be able to look at your portfolio and sleep well at night saying, I know, I'm not worried about it. I know if the market tanks, not if but when, I'm prepared for that. My broker's got me set up for that. Okay? If you can't say that definitively, you need to be looking for new advice, right? You need to find a different advisor, okay? So, you know, look, the reality is these gains look incredible. So all your accounts look great right now because the market's at this all-time record high position here, but that's just on paper, right? Just like when the market was down, they said, oh, don't worry, it's not real losses, right? That's just paper. Don't worry, it'll come back. Well, that's true, and that's what you tell someone when they're 20, 30, 40 years old. But in this phase of life, again, you don't really want to hear that. So, and a better look at this is to look at the last 100 years. So this is the last 100 years of the S&P, and you can again see it's never going to stop going up and down, okay? But in the past, every time it went up into a bull market, which is what we call where we're at right now for the last 13, 14 years, in the past, that was never longer than 7-year span, ever, right? So we know we're significantly overdue. And the only reason why we're where we are is because all the artificial propping up. After COVID, the government threw $5.4 trillion at the system. Put that in comparison to what they did after 08. That was $1.1 trillion, which was insane as well. But compare that to what they just did after COVID, or during COVID, when the market started tanking, because they knew it was gonna be another great recession, if not a Great Depression. So it's all artificial, it's a steam pot, it's unsustainable, right? And here's the real point. At this phase of your life, it's not a matter of if, but when. Next time the market goes down, which is what you see in these dotted lines here, where it's gone down significantly into a bear market, and then how long it took just for it to get back to break even again. That's those dotted lines there, okay? So you say, well, why didn't that happen after 01 and 08 and COVID? I just explained it. Because before 01 and 08, the government never threw trillions of dollars at it. That's why if you look at a 100-year timeline of our national debt, you'll see it kind of going up steadily over the years, very slightly, and then after 2000, it goes off the charts. And now we're sitting here 30 trillion in deficit, unfunded 200 trillion, in unfunded liabilities. They mortgaged our great-great-grandchildren's future, probably great-great-great-great, okay? So it's not a matter of if, but when. And here's a great graphic to really express this. So about timing, you don't really know how it's gonna work out for you in the market fluctuations over the years. So you got Steve and Bill here. For kicks and giggles, let's suppose that they're best friends and they have the same broker. Okay? And they have the same amount of money, both retire with $500,000. This is just an arbitrary figure I'm using to make this point here. This is most of their money or all of their money, right? They've got nice property and possessions that they're going to look at as their legacy to their beneficiaries, but they're not trying to save any of this $500,000 for somebody else when they pass on. They just want to spend it and enjoy it as much as possible during their retirement, and the end game goal is just to not outlive it. Right? If there's any of them left when they die, great, but they're just trying not to outlive it. But if you notice, they retired in 2 different decades, okay? They both want to spend that $500,000 as much as possible and just not outlive it, which is a balancing act, right? So, Steve here, let's start with him. Steve had always heard that the markets, had averaged about 8 to 10% over the years as an annualized average. So he figured, well, I'm going to be in the market, but I'm going to be careful. I'm not going to take that much out every year because that might be pushing the envelope, but I want to spend as much as I can. So he decided on a 6% per year spending plan of his original deposit. So he started taking out $30,000 a year. So after 10 years, he's taken out $300,000 of his $500,000. Very simple, right? Fortunately for old Steve, during the first decade of his retirement, this is what the market did. Y'all remember that? The big tech boom, right? And after taking out 300 of his 500, now he's sitting on 1.2 million. Wow, the market was incredible, old Steve here. But what about Mr. Bill? Same exact objective, same amount of money, same spending plan. But unfortunately for Bill, the first decade of his retirement looked like that in the market. This was the Great Recession, right? And look, was it the broker's fault that happened to Bill? No. Was it to the broker's credit that the market did that during Steve's first decade of Steve's retirement? No, we don't have any control over the markets like that, right? So the point is, after Bill taking out 300,000, now he's sitting on 150 grand that's got to last even if he lives to be 100 years old. Bill's in trouble, isn't he? So the question is, which one is it going to be for you over the next day? These are extreme examples I'm giving. I'm just trying to make a concept point here, okay? So, again, if this is not the most effective instrument or most suitable, I'm trying to say, instrument for you or option for you during this phase of life. Why not? More specifically, because in retirement, you do not want your accounts to mirror the severe downturns of the market, right? It'd be nice to get all the gains, but you can't stand those major losses that might take many years for a recovery. The government has essentially spoiled America into thinking that it's no big deal when the market tanked. It is a big deal. And with inflation the way it is now, they cannot keep doing what they've been doing. It's literally impossible. It doesn't work. All right. So Joe here says, well, what's the alternative, Smarty Pants? So, well, it's all really about, in the market positions, about active versus passive market portfolio management. This is very important. And again, this is not to disparage passive management. As I said earlier, that is the most efficient way during the accumulation phase of your lifetime. At RDS, we're a very small boutique investment advisory firm. We want it that way. We keep it that way so that we can stay intimate with our clients. We don't want to take on too many people and have to hire 100 employees and grow huge and lose control. But we have some very strategic partnerships through Virtue Capital Management in Brentwood, Tennessee, a little town outside of Nashville, and then Advisors Excel in Topeka, Kansas. These are on that form that I told you about at the beginning that says affiliation, so you can do some research. We're very proud of our affiliations, and these are our strategic partnerships. Let me elaborate just a little bit. So Virtue Capital Management, that is our liaison between us and the SEC, okay, for compliance, regulation, resources, all right, through our securities license. So they provide us access to institutional managers. How can they do that? Institutional managers, if you're not familiar with that term, think of it as wholesale versus retail. So on a retail level like yourself, you have access to retail managers. Edward Jones, Merrill Lynch, Raymond James, any little retail boutique firm like ours around and all that. You don't typically have access to institutional managers. These types of managers primarily reserve their investment practice for large corporations with billions of dollars, okay? So they will manage a retail client's account, but usually their minimums are about $5 to $10 million, and most retail clients don't fit that bill, right? So through Virtue Capital, they're a co-op of hundreds of advisors like us all across the country that pull volume together. So the volume that we're able to do, Virtue was able to go to these institutional managers and negotiate for them so that we can offer you a much higher skill level of managing a market portfolio than you could typically obtain on a retail level. Also proprietary tactical overlay, which is absolutely critical. I'm gonna make a big point of that in a minute. Full financial planning team that we have access to there, and strategic portfolio support from absolutely some of the brightest minds in the country. Then we have advisors that excel in Topeka, Kansas. We rely on these folks for access to all the most competitive insurance companies out there. They have contracts with all of them, all right? And that's for the purposes of long-term care solutions if our clients are in need of that, any type of life insurance solutions, any guaranteed income contracts, and then they also have a full legal and tax expert team that we have access to there and professionals. So let's kind of focus more on the Virtue Capital Management here. And this is something you would never have any dealings with. I'm just kind of sharing with you the backdrop, if you will, so you kind of get a better picture of who we are and what we do. So in Virtue Capital, regarding the institutional active managers, again, these are just a handful of at the bottom of the screen here. We actually have contracts with about, I think it's about 50 of them that we can rotate between anytime we want to, okay? And they all kind of have different philosophies and different thought processes. So this is just a little handful of them I'm showing you at the bottom here. And these folks have proven track records over 20, 30 years that are phenomenal, very, very impressive. So these folks are strategically, in these portfolios that we offer for our clients, these folks are strategically buying or selling, right? In and out of market positions, asset classes, diversification models based on existing and forward-looking market conditions. Essentially, like I said earlier, the polar opposite of buy and hold, okay? So again, at RDS, we offer active market portfolio management, but very important, as much, if not more important, with a sophisticated tactical overlay. You say, what the heck is a tactical overlay? For those of you that are not familiar with it, that's a fancy word for built-in downside protections, okay? So let's talk about that for a minute. So this is Virtue Capital Management, that's VCM. Virtue Capital Management provides us this tactical overlay strategy, a calculated strategy to mitigate your downside risk. More specifically, this is a sophisticated software that utilizes a rules-based, emotion-free computer algorithm to determine when to exit risk posture and more, or just as importantly, when to re-enter that, right? So don't get this misunderstood. This is not somebody sitting there trying to time the market, somebody making emotional decisions going in and out of the market like some sort of day trader sweating over portfolios. This is very, very sophisticated, and it's rules-based, and it's emotion-free. And these folks are constantly updating the software weekly with board meetings. The folks that wrote it are brilliant. Field worked at the SEC for many years, okay? So, again, when we look at these money managers, past performance of their portfolios, how they performed over the last 20, 30 years, their upside averages were very, very impressive. But unfortunately, as a retirement specialist, Shane and I, when we started with these folks, were not comfortable with their maximum drawdowns. There are periods of time where their accounts were downward, much further down than we would ever be comfortable having our clients go down and have that potential egg on our face. So the only way that we're willing to put our reputation on the line and have these folks manage our clients' investments is in conjunction with this VCM Tactical Overlay that I'm speaking of. So, you may or may not be familiar with this concept of a tactical overlay. Some people say, well, why not just add a simple stop loss, Don, on my account? I can do that with my broker, or I've already done that on my account, right? And you can do that. And if you don't have one, you better at least have a stop loss, okay? But a stop loss is very simple, okay? Let's talk about it just briefly here. This is essentially a standing market order on your account, on your portfolio. It's set off to go off at and trigger at a predetermined loss point. So you tell the broker 5%, 10%, 20%, whatever. If your account goes there, it cashes everything out, moves it to safety until the broker decides to move it all back into the portfolio. You tell them, or they tell you, or however you'll have it worked out. So again, that's better than nothing, okay? But this pales in comparison to this tactical overlay that I'm speaking of. Why? Because it only works one way. It just gets you out of the market at some predetermined loss point that really has no thought process to it whatsoever, right? It's not in any way intuitive, right? And unfortunately, it also has to be manually renewed every 90 days by human hands. So that enters into the equation, the variable of, someone just forgetting, right? Human error. Someone could be out of town or be sick or in the hospital or whatever, they forget. And there goes the market, and there goes your money. And it can stay down for many years and prove to be utterly devastating to you at this phase of your life, right? Unfortunately, the Vcm Tactical Overlay, we don't have to worry about renewal. It runs 365, 24 hours a day, all right? So active wealth management always begins at the center of considering a person's, an individual's personal risk tolerance. I'm sure y'all all are familiar with this proverbial scale here of risk tolerance here. At RDS, because we're retirement specialists, we only work with the first three categories here. So we don't offer our clients any aggressive portfolios at all right? So let me make sure y'all don't miss this, and you might even want to write this down. At RDS, as a market portfolio, our most aggressive portfolio is a moderate portfolio, as you can see. Just want to make sure that's clear, right? Now, between conservative and moderate, we have pieced together 25 different portfolios. And you say, what do you mean 25 different portfolios? Well, each portfolio, like I said, we have access to about 50 of these institutional active managers, these money managers, and we handpick a few of them, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them, to manage each particular portfolio for that specific objective and that specific risk tolerance that we feel would do the best job for that particular client, right? So, how do we know which of the 25 to present to you? If we end up sitting down with you individually, we would of course have you take a meticulous risk tolerance questionnaire that would, create a score, and Shane will talk about this later, and it would line you up with one of these portfolios, and that's the one as a fiduciary by SEC rule, that's the only one that we can show you, is whatever lines up with your specific risk tolerance, all right? We cannot manipulate that going forward. Now, we would love to be able to sit here and show you what these portfolios will do for you in the future, because we believe it would be extremely impressive to you. But unfortunately, that would be highly illegal and very immoral, okay? We do not have that working crystal ball, unfortunately. So the only thing we can really do is talk to you about past performance, right? And I'm sure you've heard this a million times in the industry. And unfortunately, in my career, I've seen this be manipulated in a very unethical manner. Unfortunately, not illegal, but unethical manner in the sense that there's a lot of advisors out there that when they're showing you their portfolio and then they're saying, well, this is how this portfolio acted in the past. Here's how it performed in the past. What we've learned by looking at the fine print of their illustrations is that they'll take a long period of time and then take a short period of time and slide it on that long period of time, and they'll cherry pick a pretty period of time, okay? Excuse me. And that's the time period that they're showing you. So they're not lying, it's not illegal. Unfortunately, the SEC should outlaw that practice, but it's performed very regularly in the industry to make their portfolios look better than it's probably going to be, is the obvious point in them doing that. At RDS, we certainly cannot get into this type of thing. So what we choose to do in back testing our portfolios is we choose a time frame of 2007 to date. Why would we choose that date? Well, because that way we're including a significant major market meltdown such as 08, which you all know is a 55% market drop, okay? So, why are we saying this? Because we feel that this is and this is a legal term, a fair representation of future expectation, not of future guarantees. Those are the weasel words I have to say, okay? A fair representation of future expectations. All right, so it's showing you all the good, bad, and the ugly, okay? Now, what we've done here for time's sake is we don't have time to sit here and show you the past performance of all 25 of our portfolios. We'll be here till 10 o'clock. So we're just showing you the extremes, our most conservative and our most aggressive, which again, remember, our most aggressive portfolio is just a moderate portfolio. So, and what we're doing is benchmarking these two portfolios against the S&P 500, which is pretty standard in the industry, all right? So, if you notice, our most conservative portfolio for the last 15 years, if you would have been in that portfolio, you would have averaged almost 8% per year. Let me tell you, go to any brokerage house out there and say, listen, I want to see your most conservative portfolio you offer your clients, and I want you to back test that from 2007 to date. You'll be lucky to find one that averages more than 2%. You'll be lucky. Okay, most of them are going to be half that. All right, so this is very impressive, and I'm not bragging about that personally. I don't know how to do that. That's these institutional managers in conjunction with this tactical overlay, and that's what I'm trying to get across. Our most aggressive portfolio, our moderate portfolio, you would have averaged almost 11%. So we beat the S&P by about a point. That's pretty good. In a moderate portfolio, the S&P is extremely volatile, as you probably are aware, okay? And also I want you to notate that these figures I'm showing you are net of our maximum management fee. We have a tiered management fee structure that we have to go over with you individually. That's something that we have to bring to the surface even if you didn't ask us about it as a fiduciary. So it depends on how much you have with us as to what the fee is. But when we show these numbers, we show them net after our maximum management fee. So this is what you would have averaged per year. So again, be careful not to misunderstand what we're up here telling you. We're not saying if you go with us in this portfolio, you're going to average somewhere between 8 to 11% per year, every year. We're not saying that. What we are saying is that we're comfortable with our reputation on the line that you should see something very similar to that over a long period of time. I hope that makes sense, okay? But there is no guarantee of anything in this portfolio. This is very impressive, but I think much more impressive and much more important during this phase of your life, as I've been trying to explain, is really more looking at the downturns. Okay, so what do these portfolios look like over the past 15 years when times were rough in comparison to the S&P 500? Well, you can see the S&P 500 in 2009 was down at the bottom point there at almost 55%. That was that big major market meltdown. And look where our portfolios were in the green and yellow up there during that time frame. That's incredible. That's due to our tactical overlay. You can see COVID over here. That was where the market went down, the S&P 32% right here. See where our portfolios were? Okay? So, during these particular times, our most aggressive portfolio never was down more than 14%. You're not going to find that anywhere on a retail level in a moderate portfolio, not even close. You'll be lucky to find something that's double that as a maximum drawdown. A worst moment in time is what we mean by maximum drawdown. That's kind of a slang way of saying it. Our most conservative portfolio was never down during that entire time frame of more than 4% at any moment, right? Now, how are these numbers that I'm showing you realistically achievable, right? They sound too good to be true. Well, they're not. It's due to a combination. That's what I've been trying to explain of the investment skills of our institutional managers, and again, that's just a handful of at the bottom there, but more importantly, in conjunction with the Vcm Tactical Overlay. Let me further this little point real quick before I move on. What about the past performance without the tactical overlay? What if we just take these portfolios I'm showing you, back test them over that same 15 years, but take the tactical overlay off the platform when doing that back testing? Let's take a look at it. Okay, same exact thing we just showed you a moment ago. This is the annualized average slide you're looking at here. We just saw these figures. Those are the annualized averages up there. That is with the tactical overlay. Okay? What about without the tactical overlay? Okay? Now, the most conservative portfolio was pretty weird. I don't know why it did, but it basically stayed exactly the same. But our moderate portfolio was down a couple of points compared to what it was with the tactical overlay. So there's not a big difference here, but here's where the big difference lies. In the maximum drawdown with the tactical overlay versus without the tactical overlay. Now look, our most conservative portfolio was down as much as 12.5% without that protection. And our most aggressive portfolio down almost as much as a doggone S&P. So again, those money managers are really impressive on the upside averages, but where we shine with our clients is when times are rough. So when everything's going great right now, our clients are content, they're happy, but they're not ringing our phone off with attaboy saying how rich we're making it when the market's booming. But let me tell you, when the market goes down sharply, that's when our phones ring off the hook, and Shane hears it constantly with attaboys. Thank you. I've never experienced this before. Every other advisor I was ever with just let my money go right down with the market, didn't even bother to call me sometimes. Then when I called them, they just said, oh, don't worry, it's not real losses, it'll come back, right? It's just buy and hold, right? So, as a fiduciary, protecting our clients' assets from significant losses during sharp market downturns has always been our primary objective. That's our reputation at the end of the day, right? So if you're going to continue risking a lifetime of savings on some level during this phase of your life, which we say that you should for inflation protection, you should demand no less than a retirement specialist, whether that's us or someone else, providing an actively managed strategy. Don't accept somebody just putting you in a bunch of mutual funds. You can do that yourself. You don't need to pay somebody 1% a year and all these hidden charges in the mutual funds, commissions and loads and deferred sales charges to have somebody sit there and put you in mutual funds and then talk to you every quarter. That's not management. You can go do that yourself at Vanguard for dirt cheap, okay? Operating in a fiduciary capacity and with that tactical overlay, okay? So, moving on to the next subject here. Hopefully y'all got some good information there. You write down your questions. We'll be happy to answer those later. We're going to move on to outliving your money, and then after that we'll take a break before we move to number 3, okay? So, outliving your money. For those of you that were blessed enough to retire with multi-millions, let's be real, you probably don't have to worry about that, right? You're probably not going to run out of money. But for everyone else, which is probably a lot of people here, you know, that can be a very real thing. Even if you retire with $1 million, let's face it, this day and time is not going to go. I mean, it could be 40 bucks for a loaf of bread before we know it, right? So, and medical technology keeps getting better and better. People are living longer and longer. You need to be prepared and make sure that there's no chance you're ever going to outlive your money and become a burden on someone else. In the past, we used to have this real neat, sturdy, three-legged stool with the pension and Social Security and personal savings together, right? But of course, you know, a lot of you may not even have a pension. And those of you that do have a pension, let's face it, in most situations we've noticed, if the pension owner passes in a married couple situation, the surviving spouse a lot of times doesn't get any of the pension or might only get half of it, right? My generation will never see any pensions, right? So pension is really kind of a dying breed. So we're really left with the shaky ground that Social Security's on next, right? And we all know that's bankrupt, right? It's the only question is how long it's going to sustain, and I don't trust the government any further I can throw them, right? So we're really left at the end of the day with your personal savings. Even if you live to be 100 years old, you got to be prepared with your personal savings. So, is failure, the way you're set up in your portfolio right now, is failure, meaning outliving your money, a reasonable possibility within your investment situation, your strategy here? So again, back to the 3-bucket allocation system. We talked about the risk money and what we recommend for that. If you, by the way, invest with us in that actively managed market portfolio with the tactical overlay, that investment will remain 100% liquid. So you can access any or all of that money anytime you want without any penalties. Just want to make sure that's clear, okay? So, before we move on to what is the most suitable investment choice for the safe money bucket here, let's real briefly talk about income. So for those of you that are already systematically taking or randomly taking supplemental income from your investments to supplement your Social Security or pensions or whatever, right? When we sit down with most people and ask, they're usually taking that from their risk money allocation, usually dividends or whatever. And that's fine, we're not saying that's bad, but I would position to you that it would make a lot more sense and be a lot more efficient for you to take that supplemental income from the safe money allocation of your portfolio. You say, how does that make sense? Well, I'm about to share that with you. But primarily, the idea behind it is so that, very simply, we can leave the risk money alone and let that booger grow and compound for that inflation protection. We want to leave that alone as much as possible. Our clients look at the risk money more as their emergency bucket, big ticket items, right? Inflation protection, growth. They're trying to not touch it. I'll share with you why, okay? So, now, what is the most suitable investment choice for the safe money? This is a much more challenging subject here. If you talk to any retail brokerage wirehouse out there, again, like I've been mentioning, you're pretty much going to get the general answer of a conventional portfolio of bonds. They used to use CDs and money markets. Hopefully they've gone away from that because that's pretty much a joke. Right now, the best, you can do a 10-year CD right now and be lucky to get half a point. It's just absolutely absurd, right? And then people say, yeah, but they're raising rates. Yeah, a quarter point. You know, I mean, it's not a whole lot. It's not going to make any big difference. In bonds, we've noticed over the last, we used to use bonds significantly in our strategies with our clients for the safe money allocation, just like any other broker did. You know, 70-30, 60-40, you know, whatever the standard in the industry. But we've learned over these past about 5-6 years that bonds have just become dead weight in the portfolio. They just don't make any sense anymore, and I'm sure I'm not telling you anything. And we really don't see any light at the end of that tunnel. Right? So this is not the most suitable investment choice for you. You know, if you talk to your broker though, that's probably what they're gonna provide for the safe money. They're probably gonna try to keep all your money in the risk money, because they don't wanna put any of their money in these, because they make very little money doing that, right? But that's not suitable. You wanna have, in my opinion, as much as half of your money, if not more than half of your money, in the safe money during this phase of your life. So, then again, that's kind of a general thing. Some people, it's completely different from that. But why not? Well, I think you all know why not, but let me just elaborate a little bit. Because the average interest rates in those instruments, right, of 2 to 3% over a long period of time, are number one, only temporarily guaranteed, right? Every time it matures, now you gotta go find something new, and you don't know what's gonna be available, so you can't really do any proper planning for the future, right? And number two, it's just not sufficient to support a reasonable spending plan, just simple as that, right? You say, where are you getting 2, 3%, Don? Well, you can't. Right? I'm just trying to be fair and say these instruments have averaged that over a long period of time, right? I'm just, again, trying to be fair here. Another, though, really good reason why these instruments are not the most suitable investment choice for this allocation of your portfolio is because these instruments are not associated with any type of lifetime income guarantees at all. You can take income from those instruments all you want, systematically or randomly, but if you spend it, it's gone, right? If you spend all the asset down, it's gone, right? And because of that, you are forced, whether it be consciously or subconsciously, forced to stay hyper-focused, right, on maintaining the principal. Okay, what's wrong with that? Well, nothing if your primary objective is legacy to your heirs. That's what you should be primarily focused on. But most of you would say, no, that's my objective. My money's my money. I don't spend it and enjoy it. I'm trying to save my money for somebody else. That's most of you in the room. Well, then why are you trying to maintain your principal? Who are you maintaining it for? Guess what's going to happen to your money if you don't spend it? Somebody else is going to. Why shouldn't it be you? Okay? So, Joe here pops up again and says, well, what's the alternative, Don, to those bonds, CDs, money markets for the safe money allocation? Well, are you aware of an investment contract that guarantees the following benefits? No loss potential, right? We just talked about that. Those other instruments I just shared with you have no loss potential other than the whole system breaks down. There's no market risk is what I'm suggesting at this point here. But what about guaranteed income no matter how long you live? And if you're a married couple, no matter how long your spouse lives. Guaranteed, contractually. What about even if that account, through that income, is eventually depleted to zero? Whoa, huh? Follow me. Lifetime income that we're talking about in the second bullet here, lifetime income that equates to about double to triple the average payout rate of any of those other fixed accounts. So what do you mean payout rate? We just talked about that. Those other investment instruments, bonds, CDs, money markets, the average payout rate over a long period of time is about 2 to 3%. Okay? This type of account that I'm referring to here would provide a lifetime income that equates to about double to triple that. Right? But don't miss that line. Regardless of how much interest you get. So even if you get no interest, the lifetime guaranteed payout rate, so I'm not trying to be condescending, I just want to make sure you are grasping this full concept of this, and don't miss this last point, while averaging about the same interest rates as those other fixed accounts. So this investment instrument I'm talking about still averages about the same as those others, which is crummy, probably about 2 to 4% over the years, right? But it doesn't matter, because even if it earns zero interest, the payout rate that you can sink your teeth into and is guaranteed no matter how long you live is going to be about double to triple what you would have taken out of those other instruments anyway. All right? Great news, this type of instrument does exist. They're called guaranteed income contracts. So, these types of contracts include minimum guarantees, no matter what, regardless of any interest, minimum guarantees to maximize the following objectives. Okay? To start spending your money now, or if you're already spending and enjoying your portfolio, to continue spending your money, or if you don't need or want any income right now, but you still look at your money as your own security, you're not trying to save it for someone else, you look at it more as a fail-safe backup, security blanket for some future purpose, that would be the second category. Or those of you that are blessed enough to say, I just look at my money as all legacy to someone else, okay? We've learned over the years, through 26 years of dealing with retirement folks, that about half of you fall into that first category. About 40% the second, and about 10% in the last. You're really blessed if you can say you're in the last column there. So I'm gonna talk now just a little bit more about those of you that are in the first category here. So if you're not currently taking any income, or you don't plan to start it soon, don't check out on me here. This still applies to you, but for future purposes. So bear with me a moment here. So this is those of you that say, my money's my money. You know, I just want to spend it as I see fit and not outlive it. If there's any of it left when I die, fine. Somebody can have it, enjoy it, whatever. But by gosh, I'm not going to sit in retirement pension penny sacrificing my position just to leave some chunk of money to somebody else. You're going to pay a bunch of taxes, buy a sports car, forget about me. Right? I mean, that's the reality of it. And you can't blame them. It's a windfall for them. Look, you're all going to leave a very nice legacy in property and possessions alone, even if you somehow go through all your money. So don't feel bad if you're in this category. It blows my mind. I talk to people all the time and say, that makes me sound selfish. It's your money. There's nothing selfish about you enjoying your own money. So here's a great graphic, a reality check here. Don't check out on me here. So we got John and Mary in their early to mid 70s. This is an arbitrary age that I'm throwing up here for those of you that are younger than this or older than this. Don't check out. Everything that I'm going to show you on these following bullets here is all fully proportional. So just bear with me here. I'm just trying to, for time's sake. So this couple has a $500,000 IRA. Again, I know some of you have more than that, some of you have less than that. This again is an arbitrary figure, and everything I'm going to show you is proportional. This couple has this IRA, and they're in a passively managed portfolio of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds down at Edward Jones or Merrill Lynch or whatever, doesn't matter where, okay? And they're currently taking about $20,000 a year as their required minimum distribution. This is a little intricate here, so y'all do your best to follow me here. Why are they taking that? Because if you know about the required minimum distribution on the chart, at that age, you have to take out about 4%. So 4% of $500,000 is about $20,000. That's what they have to take. And they want to take it. Because this couple is not trying to save their money for somebody else. This is somebody that says what I just said a minute ago. They're in this first objective category here, okay? So, subconsciously, they'd actually like to take even more than that if they could. They're not trying to save a dime of that for somebody else, right? But because of the way they're invested now in a conventional portfolio of stocks, bonds, and mutual funds, they have no choice, then when they broker together, to stay hyper-focused on maintaining the principal. Why is that? Well, simply because there's too many unknown variables, right? What are those variables? Well, how long they're both going to live, the market interest rate, crazy volatility, inflation levels, too many unknown variables, right? Also, because they know that their account is subject to drastic market swings, they can never truly relax in retirement, right? It's like a roller coaster throughout their retirement, elated, depressed, depending on the Dow Jones. That's not retirement, folks, come on. So, not only that, but not if but when the market does inevitably take that significant drop, now that couple's gonna feel uncomfortable about taking that 20 grand a year. They're gonna feel like they need to stop that, or at least cut it back and wait for a recovery. That would seem like the prudent thing to do, but they can't, right? Because the distribution is required by law. It's a very frustrating retirement experience. And it's most of you in the room, something very similar to this if you're already taking your required minimum distributions, okay? So, John and Mary fortunately then attended the RDS seminar just like you're sitting here, and they walked away from it realizing that they're just fed up with sweating ticker symbols and interest rates. They decided that they're willing to give up home run potentials on at least some of their money to garner security and predictability, right? They just want a way to be able to enjoy their money without the concern of outliving it, right? As they see fit. Why? Because they're not trying to save it for somebody else when they pass away. Well, shame on them. Okay. They decided that they're willing to give up, like I say, these home run potentials on some of their money to garner security and predictability. Well, based on the RDS advice, they transferred, don't miss this, remember this is a $500,000 IRA, they transferred $300,000 of this, which is not a taxable event, into the guaranteed income contract that we recommended to them, okay? And how did that benefit them? They immediately began receiving the exact same $20,000 a year that they were already receiving. You say, well, where's the advantage? They were already doing that, right? Which will still cover all of their required minimum distributions for the whole $500,000, wouldn't it? Because the government doesn't care which one they take it out. They split their IRA into two different accounts. The government just says they got to take out $20,000 of the $500,000. If they're taking that whole $20,000 from this $300,000, the other $200,000 they can leave it alone, right? And now they can fully relax, as now that $20,000 is fully guaranteed, not just them taking it, crossing their fingers, and hoping that it works out where it might and it might not, right? Irrespective of market interest rate conditions, the market can tank, and they don't care. Wow, there's a lot of intrinsic value to that. Or even if the account this guaranteed income contract, this $300,000, even if that's depleted to zero, and they happen to live to be 100 years old, they're still guaranteed that, no matter how long they live. We significantly enhanced their situation, okay? What about the remaining $200,000? Well, we recommended that over to our actively managed market portfolio with our tactical overlay for growth and inflation protection, right? And since they won't be required to take an income from it, or required minimum distribution, I just explained why they won't have to, all right? They can either leave that alone for growth and inflation protection, or if they choose to, they can feel free to access that systematically or randomly for some additional income if they want to. Their prerogative, right? And lastly, if they were to pass away prior to depleting that $300,000 in the guaranteed income contract, don't miss that, 100% of whatever's left would still go to their beneficiaries. So they're able to enjoy this contractual guarantee with no market risk, that they know they're going to be able to enjoy their income at about 3 times what they ever would have normally felt comfortable taking, but now it's guaranteed for the rest of their life. The market could tank and they don't care, or even if the account's depleted, they're still guaranteed that. That's a much enhanced situation. It's just another happy RDS client. This is what we do for folks as an alternative. Please don't miss that. We're not saying take your money out of the market and move it into this. This is an alternative to bonds. Okay? So, we talked about the first objective there. Let's talk about those of you real briefly here that are in the second one here. You're saying, well, I'm not trying to save my money for somebody else necessarily. I more look at my property, my possessions as my legacy. I just look at my money as my security blanket. I don't really need it right now. I've got plenty of Social Security, pension, whatever, but I look at my money as a fail-safe backup in case I need it in the future for whatever reason, okay? So, for those of you that fit into this category, this is how this guaranteed income contract can benefit you, right? In this contract, you would be guaranteed during the first 10 years that the longer you wait to start the lifetime income, which you can start day one, I just gave you that example on John and Mary, they started at day one, so there is no deferral requirement, okay? Or you can defer that income out if you don't need it, which is the example I'm giving here, right? For as many years as you want to. You never have to turn on that lifetime income. You can just look at it as a fail-safe backup pension for some future purpose, and if you never use it, it just goes to your beneficiaries along with whatever interest it got, and no market risk along the way, okay? The lifetime income will be higher for the rest of your life every year that you defer starting that lifetime income. Let me make sure you understand the example here. So again, I'm using the same $500,000, 7-year-old couple here, and I'm showing a 10-year deferral here, right? Now don't misinterpret these figures here. These are not withdrawals that you're seeing here. These are showing what your pension would be if you turned it on in that given year. So if this couple put that money in there and they waited 5 years to start the lifetime income, then their income would now be $41,000 a year every year for the rest of both of their lives, no matter how long they live. If they waited 8 years, it would be $54,000 a year every year for the rest of their life. Okay? So this is all, make sure you don't miss this. This increase that you're seeing every year here while you're in deferral each year, right, has nothing to do with interest in this contract. If this contract earns 0 interest, it still increases exactly as you see it, guaranteed. And also don't misinterpret. I want to make sure I don't lose anybody here. I'm not saying that if you started in 3 years, your income will be $37,000 a year, and every year after that, you're going to get that increase in your income. That's not what I'm saying. Your income would stay the same for the rest of your life once you start. But that's why I said these are not withdrawals. These are showing what your pension would be in any given year if you turned it on in that year. Okay? So you can do the math real quick. Once you get into your about mid-80s, early to mid-80s, you will be guaranteed to have taken out an amount equal to what you put into. Every year you live past that is just free money. You say, well, I mean, I got to live past 80 years old to get any benefit from this? That's ridiculous. No, because what about between now and then, all those years where you were enjoying your money at about 2 to 3 times what you normally would have felt comfortable, and you can relax. The market could tank, and you're not affected on this level of money. There's intrinsic value there, right? And you're protected. Basically, what you're doing is very simple. You're buying insurance on your income. You buy insurance for all sorts of things. It's use it or lose it. Your car insurance, your homeowner's insurance, right? Term life insurance, all use it or lose it, right? This is insurance on your, why not insure your income? Lots of you have a pension. I can't imagine there's anybody in here to say, I hate my pension. I can't stand my pension. Everybody loves their pension. What is a pension? It's exactly what we're talking about. It's a guaranteed lifetime income. But there's a big difference. On your pension, you annuitized that contract with that company you work for. You do not own that asset anymore, do you? You may have spousal continuation at 50 or 100%, but if both of you pass, there's no money going to the heirs, right, of your pension, even though you worked there all those years. So, but everybody still loves their pension. What we're saying here is you can have your cake and eat it too. You get the same advantage of a pension, an income that you can sink your teeth into and know you can depend on no matter how long you both live. But if you die prior to depleting it, everything you put in, plus any little meager interest that comes in, minus whatever you took out, goes to your beneficiaries. Okay? So it's just as simple as that. If you have questions about it, you probably do, write it down, don't forget. The final column here just talks about the difference in the percentage between each year. Sometimes there's a little bigger advantage to waiting another year or whatever, so we like to kind of point that out. Everyone please get this down to the very back right side of your folder. This is the holy grail of your folder. This is a 10-year project in the making that we have perfected. You don't want to miss this. Now, Shane puts this in the right side flat, but he puts it behind all the other papers, so it might be stuffed way down the bottom on the right side and behind all the other papers. It's a heavy card stock like that. Everybody, please pull that out, and then we're going to take a quick intermission here. And when we come back, we're going to go right back to that card, and you don't want to miss that. I've gone about 2-3 minutes over my first, the first part of our seminar time. This slide here, I get that from my mama. I guarantee you she'd admit it. So I hate to rush off to the break, but please get back as quick as you can. Thank you.
They've got two ways. They have one, the one we did, it's like how we came in, and then we have another too.
I'm not even very interested in doing it. But I just wondered because, that was the nearest arena to where I live. And it turned out, was it back over? Okay. Fishtails, which is another marina, 10 minutes down the road, they're over $1 a gallon cheap. Plus, I was thinking they got $5. Fishtails just doing it anyway. I did not.
Otherwise, I don't think I would have done the phones. Here we go.
See, I don't
We
think
have
I'll.
neighbors that haven't retired, full-time.
When I was working, I didn't go to town, but I'd rather have a
And,
meeting.
they read about this area, in the Delta Digest on Airplane years ago. And that's how they found out.
Oh, I did. I've got to get it from Cusco.
No,
And that's, it's not quite as expensive, but it's still
the
pretty
more I
nice.
look at the more I love beautiful. And there's,
Yeah. They're about full, they're about,
in your long desert, there's a lot of interesting
Right.
ones to the even state trips. History, war history. I was gonna have a chance to get down in Louisville.
I have just for shopping.
There's a lot of history.
Really?
The Georgia military academy.
Warm me up a little bit, oh yeah, I'll do the same thing.
Yeah.
Georgia College, something crazy like that.
Middle Georgia College or something.
It always freaks me out. You want to say UGA, it's not Georgia
Isn't
State.
it?
and
Right, yeah. But, it's just food, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's better
Coming from
shopping.
Chicago, and nothing is like 10 minutes away, everything.
Everything, right.
You used to live here.
We got everything here in Greensboro. We've got a brewery, and we got a Home Depot.
The doctors, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is just like me stepping back in time, because I grew up in You could use.
Did you actually live in Chicago, like in
No,
the
I lived
city
in one of
itself?
the suburbs,
Oh.
I worked in the city.
You play golf?
Because I mean, that would be a much bigger shocker, you know, coming from like downtown Chicago. I grew up about 20 miles outside New York City. I never lived in New York City. I don't want to ever, you know.
Did you work in New York City?
Never,
No,
never.
see,
But
I worked in Chicago, so I feel like I have that, you know, during lunch and go out for dinner and things like that. And then.
yeah, you were there already, so why not? You
Yeah.
know, type of thing, right?
Yeah.
Jenkins.
No, even our suburbs.
Sure. I mean, yeah, and that's what it is in New Jersey too. I mean, plenty of
Yeah.
shopping and things
Yeah.
like that. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people.
A lot of traffic.
Yeah, I think, what is our county population? Just, did it crest 19,000? Is it now? Greene County, I mean, when we first moved here, I think it was 16,000.
I think when I was down here 2 years ago, Greensboro itself was 4,000.
Yeah, it's 30 something hundred.
How in the world could it possibly be?
Most of us are south of Interstate 20.
Yeah.
Our working years are in
Yeah, yeah, so, and yet everything is.
Oh, yeah.
But I'd like to hear a lot better. I want to tell you.
Oh,
Along with
well, I
traffic.
was telling you, so what I just. Some moral of that story.
Yeah, it is. Most certainly. Well, I've been here since, well, bought a house December of 14. We moved in about 6 months later, and I drove to Atlanta every day, 5 days a week, for 5
Yeah.
years. I
Wow.
retired.
5 years is a long time.
Yes, it is. Put a lot of miles on the car. A lot of oil
Driving
changes.
into the city, it was an hour 15, but yours has to be closer to 2
Well,
hours.
no, it was about an hour and 20. Well, I went off times. So I worked, Mark and I both worked for Delta, and I was in tech ops, so I had odd starting time. If I had to hit the bulk of the traffic, the main, there would
When they're moving.
yeah, it would have been several hours going in, several hours coming back. It would have been the same.
Yeah, this is It's like vacation all the time.
Yeah, well, people try to sell it that way.
All right, we can get everybody settled down as soon as we can, so we can get the second half started. I really appreciate it. Sure, I hate to rush y'all through the break. Just want to make sure we're done in time, in time for the buffet this evening. If y'all haven't had it before, boy, you're in for a treat. This is the only place, we do these, like I say, in 8 different spots all over the southeast. We go to Grove Park Inn up in Asheville and Chattanooga, Tennessee, at the Roots Chris, and all different really neat places. And our next one's up at the Brasstown Valley Resort in Hawaii, here in the gorgeous. But this is the only spot that we go to. The chef is brave enough to put filet mignon and grilled salmon on the buffet. No, everybody else, we got to put plated meals and all that, and that's fine too, but it's just so much nicer to just go and hit it. We only have one rule in our seminar, and that is you have to clear that thing out, okay? So everybody go home stuffed, eat it all, we don't want to leave it, I can't stand waste just the way I grew up. So please enjoy. I hope everyone's writing down some really good questions this evening. Again, we'll try our best to get them all answered at the end, best we can. So, and then like I said, Shane said, you may remember, he said there's the notes that we're going to pass out here at the end. I think you'll find that real helpful when you get home. While everything's kind of fresh in your mind, to go ahead and sit down within the next day or so and kind of highlight the notes, the things that struck a chord for you. You know, and that would give us some good talking points if you decide you want to meet with us individually. And then also, don't forget, on the back of the notes, there's that glossary, the terms glossary, because I know we use a lot of terms up here that some people might have not heard of and, you know, might not remember or know the definition, so that should help you to do that. I think you'll find it real helpful. So anyway, moving back into the seminar the blue card here that we were talking about. This is real important. I want everyone on this, where I've put this red circle here in that first bullet, not that top line up there, but that line in that first bullet there. I want everyone to please write the number 1 in that block there, okay? And if you read the bullet, you'll understand it's saying that we're supposing that you're going to defer starting the income 1 year. Now remember, you don't have to. We gave the example of John and Mary earlier. They started the income day 1. And I also gave you another example where you could defer as many years as you want to. This is just an example. All I'm really trying to do is get a concept across to you. And I don't have time to go through every year, so I'm just choosing 1 year as an example, okay? It says at the end of the bullet that any year you defer longer than what you just wrote down, the percentage that you're about to write down in the top line up here would be more higher and higher. So the percentage I'm going to have you write down the top is assuming you start the income 1 year from now. So later, after y'all leave, we talk to you individually, and you say, well, I would think that if I did something like this, I would start at 5 years from now when I retire, or whatever it is, okay, whatever your reasons are. We can show you a customized analysis with the exact percentage of how much your income would be if you waited to that specific year to start. I'm just trying to make sure everyone understands. Now, what you're going to write down on the top up here, don't write this down, but what you're going to write down is somewhere between 5 to 8%. And how do you know what to write down? It's going to be these little columns here. So you have joint life section and single life section. Let me make sure everyone understands this before you write down a number. If you're a married couple and you have your money all joined together, right? And you would, if you did a contract like this, you would of course want the income to be for both spouses' lives, no matter how long both of you live. You would of course go by the first column, but it's very important you have to consider the youngest spouse's age. Don't forget that, okay? If you're a single person, you would go by the other column, and that would be a little bit higher payouts because they only have to consider one person's lifetime. So it's obvious why it would be a little higher payout, okay? So let me give you an example. Well, actually, let me say this. If you're a married couple, but you have separate money, you keep all your money separate, it's a later marriage, we see that a lot, you can still go by the single life column if you want to, okay? Just make sure you all understand that. Now, let's suppose that we have a couple in here that's wants joint lifetime income and they're 68 and 72. So we would go by the 68-year-old, right? So you would write down somewhere between there. So you'd write down about 6%, right? If you're a 68-year-old single person, you would write down somewhere between those two figures there. So like, whatever, 6.6%, 6.7%, whatever that is, okay? Doesn't have to be exact. I'm just trying to make sure everyone knows if you happen to fall between these 5-year, brackets here that we have, then you can kind of figure it out. Now, please don't misinterpret these figures you write down. What does it say at the top of the card? It says this figure is a guaranteed minimum withdrawal rate, not interest rate. Please don't go out here and say, this is awesome, RDS is offering 5 to 8% interest rates. That's absurd, okay? Guaranteed for life. Nobody's ever offered that. Literally in the history, back in the 80s, you could get a 16% CD, but it wasn't guaranteed for life. It was for 1 year, okay? So these withdrawal rates we're talking about here are of what? Withdrawal rate of what? Of your original deposit, not of a declining balance. That would be a horse of a different color. That insurance company is on the hook contractually to pay you whatever percentage you're writing down of whatever you deposit, having no idea how long you're going to live. That's the risk that they're willing to take because they want to use your money. Okay? So these withdrawal rates you're showing are guaranteed minimums. Don't miss this. Assuming 0 interest. This contract will earn interest over the years, but that's the weakness of this contract. I've tried to be very fair with you about that. It's going to earn interest over the years, but it's probably only going to average 2 to 4%. It doesn't matter. You're not going to care about the interest. I know that's hard to grasp because that's all you ever thought about, the gains, the growth, the interest, the dividends. That's because every other instrument doesn't have what this has, a guaranteed lifetime income. No one's going to give you that and give you great interest. That would be too good to be true. It doesn't matter what the interest is. The interest is really only going to be relevant to how much is left when you die. So if there's no interest, then once you've taken out everything you put in, there would be nothing left. But you don't care. You're still guaranteed the income no matter how long you live, just like any other pension, right? But if there's interest in the contract and you average what our clients have averaged, then once you've taken out everything you put in, there will still be about 30% of what you started with in the contract if you died at that time. That's more realistic of what you're probably going to see, but it doesn't matter. This contract is weak from a legacy standpoint. This is not about legacy. You've got other things for legacy. This is for your own security, your own enjoyment. It's providing a way for you to spend and enjoy your money at a higher level than you would normally feel comfortable doing so. That's what I'm trying to share with you here. So, let me elaborate on this a little further here. So all those bullets are very important. So if you go out here and you Google and you talk to your broker, banker, your insurance person, or whoever, and they tell you they can offer you any more than what you just wrote down up there, something smells bad, I promise you. You're not comparing apples to apples. How can you find out? Check those bullets. Like I said, this is a 10-year project in the making that we perfected. You'll learn a lot from this card if you just study it over the next week or so. Keep going back to it, okay? Question. What percentage of your investments do you normally feel comfortable taking out each year if you're already systematically taking money from your investments? Or randomly, okay? Well, Morningstar, you probably always heard recommended to keep it at 4%. Everybody's heard that for years and years. You might not be aware that after 2008, they adjusted that at 2.8% a year with a 2% a year inflation adjustment. And that's about what we see when we sit down with most people. They're usually taking 2 or 3% out, even if they're not trying to save it down for somebody else. Okay? But what percentage would you feel comfortable taking each year if your current investment strategy that you're employing or your broker's employing performed poorly on average over the rest of your life? You say, well, that's pessimistic. Yes, it is. But can your broker guarantee you that's not going to happen? No, they can't. The old adage is better hope for the best, prepare for the worst, right? Well, probably less than 2% now, right? Just the minimum guarantees on these contracts we're showing you will allow you to take out anywhere from 5 to 8% or whatever you wrote down on your blue card of your original deposit, no matter how long you live. That's at least double the amount of income you normally would have felt comfortable taking from any other fixed instrument. Because that's what we're comparing it to here. This contract, please don't make the mistake of taking all this information and running home and pulling up your spreadsheets and trying to compare this to your stock accounts. That's an apples to oranges comparison. That's absurd. It's not meant to be that. We're showing you an alternative to sitting in bonds or CDs or money markets. You say, well, I don't sit in none of those. Well, you don't need to have all your money in the market. I mean, that's your prerogative, but good luck with that. You need to have some safety. And this is all guaranteed for life. Right? So, bottom line, if your primary objective when it comes to your money is just to spend and enjoy it either now or later or both and just not outlive it, or you simply look at it as a security blanket for some future purpose, right? Then we recommend that your primary focus for your safe money allocation, that's the key, okay, should be who will guarantee me the highest withdrawal rate of my original deposit, not interest rate, okay? Guaranteed for life and without market risk, period. That's the bottom line. Listen, I don't want to be crass, but let me give you the real bottom line. Let me break it down for you, as my kids say, okay? Here's the real bottom line. We've been doing this a long time. There's going to be a certain percentage of you in the room that are going to hear this, and it's going to completely resonate with you this evening. But you're going to leave out of here, and you're going to go talk to your broker, or your banker, or Google, or your cousin, or your attorney, or whoever, okay? And somebody's going to talk you out of it. And they're probably trying to look out for your best interest unless they have their own personal motive for whatever, which would be obviously another broker or something like that, okay? And so a certain percentage of you, no matter how much it may resonate with you this evening, are going to dismiss this over the next couple of weeks, and you're just going to keep doing whatever you're doing and go on about the rest of your life. Here's the real bottom line. For those of you that happens, more than likely, by the end of your lifetime, you'll have enjoyed your money at about half as much as our clients enjoyed their money. Now, being fair, if that happens, you'll probably end up leaving more to your beneficiaries than our clients did. But is that your objective? Might be. I'm just saying, think about it. So, that's the real bottom line. Last one I'm going to talk about here, and we're wrapping the subject up here, is those of you that are purely legacy driven, can't imagine ever needing to touch your portfolio for income or whatever. Again, very few of you, so I'm going to spend just a quick moment about this, because I know this is not many of you. And this has an age limit of 75, so if you're older than 75, you cannot qualify for this benefit, okay? This contract would be guaranteed 7% simple growth to what's called the enhanced death benefit value. What does that mean? You put in whatever you put in, 100,000, 500,000, million, whatever you put in. That deposit is also going to be duplicated into another bucket called the guaranteed enhanced death benefit. So if you put in 500,000, your account value is going to be 500,000. It's going to get very little interest over the years, probably 2 to 4%. The same thing I've been saying. You're not going to care, because the enhanced death benefit value is also going to start out at 500,000 or whatever you deposit, and that part is going to be guaranteed to increase by 7% simple, not compound. That means if you deposit at 100,000, it's $7,000 every single year, no matter what. of interest, okay? Enhancing that death benefit base. Why is that not too good to be true? Nobody else is paying 7% guaranteed for the next 15 years, right? Because you can't walk away with that bucket. It's only available as a death benefit. But again, that's the objective that we're talking about here, okay? So for those people, if you got some dead money sitting around somewhere and it ain't making nothing, and you might want to consider something like this, right? Where you know you can double it over the next 15 years. Is that a big deal? No. If you leave in the market, can you do better than that? Absolutely. You do a lot better than that. You can also lose half of it. This is guaranteed, okay? The surviving spouse can also take the enhanced death benefit, or if they're under age 76, they don't have to take it. They can continue that contract until they pass away to the heirs. The enhanced death benefit proceeds are paid out in a lump sum, not in an annuity that your heirs have to take or whatever, and only the growth portion of it would be taxable, okay? All of this that I'm showing you is worst case scenario, assuming no interest ever, okay? As far as in the actual account value, right? And no medical questions, okay? No market risk, right? So something you might want to think about. So regarding guaranteed income contracts, how can insurance companies offer such strong guarantees that I've been touting here with zero market risk? It just seems too good to be true, right? There's got to be a catch. There's always a doggone catch, right? Of course there's a catch. And you'll start to understand how we've gone 26 years without a single complaint. Look, we're here to make a living, folks. As you saw our families, we got families to feed. We don't make no bones about it. But we don't want to hurt you to help us. We're looking for a long-term relationship potentially with your family, not a quick buck. It needs to be a good deal for both of us. So all we care about is that you fully understand what it is that we're showing you. If you fully understand it and yet don't see the value for you in your particular situation, good, we're not a match. We just want to make sure you don't misinterpret things and we part ways and you don't enjoy the things that our clients have been enjoying their whole life because of some silly misinterpretation we could have easily cleared up, okay? So we tell you the good, bad, and the ugly. The catch of these contracts, why is this insurance company willing to guarantee you these things no matter how long you live, even if the account's completed to nothing, keep paying you that? Because they're going to make you promise for there are a number of years to not take out more than 10% a year. You say, ooh, well listen, if you didn't take out more than 10% a year of your money every year, you're in trouble anyway. I mean, it ain't gonna last very long, let's be real about that. We don't have any clients like that. Okay? This is not all of your money. Our clients still have another big bucket that's 100% liquid they can access anytime they want to. They don't care about the liquidity of this account. They're setting it up for a guaranteed lifetime income. But this is why the insurance company, I'm trying to make it make sense to you, so you can rationalize this in your mind. Why are they willing to do this, okay? Because they know now that they've got at least 90% of your money that they can take and put with hundreds of thousands of other people's money. They can go out and make really long-term bulk commitments on their investments in their portfolio, and they can earn really handsome returns with very little risk. That's a genius game. And insurance companies are the richest people in the world. They've been doing it for 300 years. They know what they're doing, okay? Now, because of this first point, it is not wise for you to move funds into this type of instrument if there's any chance that you might need to take out more than 10% a year. I mean, I can't possibly be any more forthcoming than I am. You say, what do you mean, any chance though, Don? I can't predict every emergency that might come up. I got a whole slide for that in just a moment, all right, believe it or not. However, if you have funds that you've designated already exclusively, these particular funds, for retirement income enhancement or inheritance purposes, and you can say you're positive that you would never need to take out more than 10% a year of those particular funds, then why would you let the surrender charges or the penalties cause you to avoid this type of contract? You wouldn't. It makes no sense whatsoever. But that's the number one reason people will avoid this type of contract. Oh, they're trying to lock up your money in this place of your life for all those years. That's outrageous. Listen, you want to talk about locking up your money? Keep most of your money in the market. It's not a matter of if, it's when. The market's going to correct, folks. Y'all know it. And it could go down 20, 30, 40, 50%. And when it does, you want to talk about being locked up. Now you're really locked up. You can't take any of that without suffering that penalty. And how long is it going to take for recovery? Big fat question mark. Who knows? At least here you can access the first 10% per year if you wanted to without any penalty. But that's not your lifetime income, so don't misinterpret that. That's on your blue card, okay? That's what I'm notating here. So you can take out anywhere from 0 to 10% every year if you wanted to without any penalty. But you don't want to do that. That's just what you could do. So let me make sure you understand. So let's suppose that your blue card says 6%, okay? So you would be accessing 6% of your 10% allotment. So in any given year, you could come along and take up to another 4% if you wanted to and still not incur a penalty, right? But if you did that, now you've messed up the deal. So now they got to go in and recalculate everything, and now your income's going to be something less than that going forward, right? So again, want to make sure y'all don't misinterpret what I'm saying. If you have more questions about it, write it down. I know this is a little intricate here, okay? We like to take it a step further and say, maximize your loyalty, the other catch. What do we mean by that? Simply put, stay with it. You can leave this contract anytime you want to. This is your money, okay? If you leave during the penalty phase, you're gonna pay a penalty, because you broke the deal, right? They made you this big commitment, committing to you for no matter how long you live, and you broke the deal, okay? If you leave after the penalty phase is over, there's no penalty. But if you ever completely bail out of this contract, regardless of when, you're gonna be forfeiting all the reasons for which you came into it to begin with. So it would never make sense for you to leave, okay? So, it's all about proper planning before funding something like this. So no matter how good it looks, you never want to put all your money, or most of your money, in something like this, okay? So as an example, we had someone that came to our seminar and they said, we've got $500,000, Don, this is our retirement, it's what we worked our whole lives for, we're not trying to save it for somebody else, we just want to enjoy it as much as possible and not outlive it. This sounds awesome. We're sick and tired of the market. Look, the market's at an all-time high, we don't want to look the gift horse in the mouth. We want to get while the getting's good and grab the market gains right now and reposition to something like this. We're willing to give up home runs that might or might not happen. All right? So we want to put as much of that as we can in this contract. That's where we pump the brakes. The first thing you want to do is think about emergencies, okay? Sit down and think about it. Anything you can think of that over the next decade or so that you think might come up, that you need a big chunk of money, don't put that in this contract. At RDS, we recommend you reserve at least $50,000 to $100,000 minimum. Err on the side of caution on that. I can't stress that enough. Matter of fact, we like to take it a step further and say, think about future big ticket items. Cars, boats, properties, vacations, sit down and be creative. Add it all up. At RDS, we recommend that's at least another $50,000 to $100,000 minimum. If you've got a lot more than $500,000, you should err on the side of caution even more than what we're showing here, okay? But if this person did this kind of proper planning, they would still have about $300,000 to $400,000 that they could put any or all of that into this contract and they would never regret it. Now, how much of that should they put into this contract? Well, that's a personal preference. How much of your money do you want to have no market risk the rest of your life and be able to enjoy it about 2 or 3 times what you would have otherwise, right? With no risk of outliving it. But here's a good way to look at it. Once you set aside whatever you feel like you need to keep for what we just talked about, emergencies and or cash purchases, erring on the side of caution. I can't stress that enough. Here's the deal. If you did well enough during the accumulation phase of your lifetime that you amassed more money on top of this, well, then you're coming from strength, not weakness. And don't let anybody tell you that you have to keep risking the lion's share of your money for the rest of your retirement if you don't really want to. I very rarely meet people that say, Don, I just love the thrill of it. Most people are doing it because they just don't know of an alternative. I do meet that person every now and then, by the way. They got 3 computer screens and they're buying options and having a good old time shucking and jiving, but a lot of times that can become an addiction. I'm gonna hush before I get in trouble. Anyway, my real point in this slide is the opposite. The less you have above this, if you have anything above this, the less you have above that, the more critical it is that that money is not at risk. You can't afford to lose any of that. And the more critical it is that that money has a guaranteed lifetime income, because the less it is, the harder it is to make it last, no matter how long you might live, which could be 100 years old. So it's, multimillionaires take out these contracts with us every week, okay? But they didn't need it. They would have been fine if they'd have never done that, but they didn't get where they got without making wise decisions along the way. They found this to be a lot more prudent than their safe money allocation they're doing now. But they didn't really need it. It didn't change their life. But people that have very little, this can absolutely transform their retirement. So, suitability is very critical. This comes down to 2 critical questions. So no matter how much this may resonate with you, you may think, I want to do something like this, it might not be right for you. I wish we could help everybody that comes here, but we want to make sure we're not hurting you to help us. So let's be clear. Number 1, did you retire with less than about $200,000 in total investable assets? Not including property or possessions. What is investable assets? All your money. We just talked about this actually at the very beginning of the seminar, if you remember. Okay? So, did you retire with less than about $200,000 in all your money? Okay? How do we arrive at that $200,000 figure? Well, that's not an exact science. But what we said is that if you retire with less than $200,000, you may end up needing nearly all of that for some big emergency or big ticket item or whatever, and we don't want to have you in that bad position, okay? Therefore, only investors with greater than $200,000 would be considered suitable potential clients for this type of contract. Okay? So, number 2, this is equally as important. Does your lifestyle require you, that's the key, to take out more than whatever it says on your blue card of your investments, okay? Very simple. If you can answer no to both of these questions, then you are suitable for some portion of your investable assets in this type of instrument, and you will never regret it. But what about the criticisms surrounding these contracts that you should be aware of? We talked about a few of this evening, right? But there's actually more. And you may say, well, don't I need to understand all these things? Absolutely, you need to understand all these things. And I'll tell you, if you go out after this and you do the kind of research that I did before I ever even considered putting any of my clients and putting my reputation on the line, you will do about 6 months worth of in-depth research. And if you went through all of that research I did, you're going to find exactly 6 criticisms regarding these instruments. Exactly 6 of them. And I can sit here and go through all 6 of them with you diligently. And here's a big if. If you're a suitable person, we just talked about what that means. And if you're only looking at putting a portion of your money, erring on the side of caution to keep plenty liquid, not one of those 6 are a legitimate reason for you to avoid some of your money into this type of contract. But if I went over it with you, you couldn't memorize everything I said, and I can't follow you out of here to your meeting with your banker or your broker or Google or whatever you're going to do. So guess what? I've armed you. It's right there on the back of your blue card. There's all 6 of them. If there were more than 6, I'd have made a bigger blue card. Okay? They're all right there. Now think about this. Why would somebody in my position be bringing up objections that you might not have even thought of? Why would I do that? Because I don't want you to be in a bad position. I want you to understand it, right? I want to make a living, but not at your expense, right? You want to understand it, and don't avoid it for the wrong reasons because you didn't thoroughly understand it. Do yourself a favor, do the research, ask us the questions, understand it thoroughly, and then decide, is this going to benefit me or not? So, there's only 3 reasons that I know of that a retiree shouldn't invest a dime of their money in this type of contract. Number 1, you don't have enough. We like to use that figure of about $200,000 or less. Okay? Number 2, your lifestyle requires you to take out more than what it says on your blue card. We just explained that a minute ago. Number 3, you're just confident and convinced the market's just going to keep soaring the rest of your life, and you can't stand to give up any of those home run potentials. Well, good luck with that. It might happen. I ain't rooting against it. That'd be great for our clients. All right? So, you say, but what insurance company might replace you with? Well, we have access to literally all insurance companies. I explained that to you at the very beginning. You probably don't remember through our strategic partnership with Advisors Excel in Topeka, Kansas, right? But we only contract with the most competitive ones. It's one of the things Shane stays on the cutting edge on a daily basis is shopping and making sure that whatever we're showing you, we know that figure you wrote down is the best deal available out there. Other people can match it, but no one can beat it, okay? So, and 100% of the companies that we do contract with are highly rated investment grade insurance companies, and don't miss this, that are forced by law to reinsure each other. They have no choice. So the only way y'all could lose your money in this type of contract is literally if all insurance companies go bankrupt. And if that happens, folks, we're done. I mean, seriously, we're back to the Cro-Magnon days. I mean, insurance companies, everybody loves to hate them, I get it, but they're the richest people in the world. They manage most of the money in the world, and if they all go down, we're done, okay? So, and most of the ones that we contract with are nearly or over 100 years old. So it really doesn't matter what company we put you with. We're gonna give you whoever's giving you the best deal, all right? So I'll talk about the first 2 categories here. I'm gonna cover the third here real briefly, and then I'm gonna bring Shane up to finish us off. When it comes to long-term care, this is a subject that nobody wants to talk about. And almost 100% of the people that I sit down and talk to about it say, I'm never going to one of them places. No way in the world. You know, I'll stay here at home, or I'll shoot myself, or what I hear it all, okay? Look, here's the reality. There's thousands of these facilities all over the nation, right? Hundreds of thousands of them, and they're all full of people that thought exactly like you think. They're never going in there. And I would suppose if you went and interviewed people in there, you would be hard pressed to find even one that said, yeah, this was my plan all along. They all thought like you do. So you want to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Now, if you're uber wealthy, you can afford to do it yourself. That's your prerogative. We have a lot of clients that are uber wealthy and can handle themselves, but they figure, why would I want to use my own money? I'd rather my money go to my heirs and have some kind of protection. But for people that can handle it all on your own, because you're looking at $50,000 to $100,000 a year in today's money, who knows what that might look like 10 or 20 years from now when you might need it, okay? It's expensive, right? So what most people do to cover this concern is they just go buy traditional long-term care insurance through Genworth or Mutual Omaha or whatever. So that is a way. And if you have that, I'm not telling you go cancel, I'm not telling you it's bad, but we don't believe it's the most efficient way. I'll tell you why. Number one, the premiums are pretty expensive. about 4 to 6 grand a year. Number two, the insurance companies can jack up your premiums whenever they want to. That's in the contract, I promise you, and they will. We're seeing them doubling, tripling people's premiums, okay? And the only recourse you have is to cancel it, and then you've lost all your money, okay? Number three, the coverage usually runs out after somewhere between 4 to 6 years. It's not a permanent policy. So what if you end up being like my grandmother who's in there 11 years at $85,000 a year, and 5 years down into the deal, and the thing cuts off on you, and now you're on your own again? Can you imagine how frustrated you'd be after you paid all those premiums all those years? Okay? And the worst thing about it is all you use to lose it. Pay all that money into it, rest of your life. If you never end up needing it, all that money's just down the toilet. I hate that. Okay? So, we believe a much better avenue is a hybrid long-term care plan. This is a very simple type of plan. It's a one lump sum premium. There's not any annual or monthly premiums to consider the rest of your life. You take a chunk of money. It's a pill to swallow. Okay? You take a chunk of your money and you dump it in and it's done. There's no chance of future premiums. Okay? You choose your monthly benefit. You can choose anywhere from $2,000 to $8,000 a month in benefits. You say, well, how do I know what to choose? Well, you don't need coverage for the whole thing. You know, $8,000 will probably cover, that's 100 grand a year, that'll probably cover everything. But you got money, you can handle some of it, you just need some kind of supplement. We have clients that just do as little as $2,000 or $3,000. Believe me, you'll be very happy you have that if you ever need it. Most people usually do $4,000 to $6,000 a month benefits. You can do whatever you want. Whatever your monthly benefit is, that's going to dictate how much your lump sum premium is. Or we can reverse math it and say, I'm only willing to put this much in there, how much monthly benefit will that get me? You can do it that way too. We can run you a bunch of illustrations. Okay, Shane will show you one in a minute. Unlimited number of years. That's the biggest thing about this product. They have a patent on this product. This company is 145 years old, A+ top-notch rated. All right, and they have a patent. They're the only product out there that has an unlimited number of years. If you're a married couple, it works for both of you. And it's any type of long-term care, home health care, assisted living, or full-blown nursing home care. And it is not use it or lose it. Okay? Beneficiaries would receive no less than your initial deposit minus whatever you put in. So there's no growth. You're giving up growth for the security for the rest of your life that you have this benefiting. So if you never use it, everything you put in just goes to your heirs. Okay? So let me give you an example. This is just an example. Don't box yourself out. If you're not this exact age, just an example of a 66-year-old couple. Yours would be different. If you were older, we can give you individual illustrations and show you what yours would be. I'm really more trying to share a concept with you here, and this is really the only way I can do it. So this couple said we want a $4,500 a month benefit. All right. So that would pay $54,000 a year per person. So one lump sum premium of $150,000. No possibility of future premiums. They're done. Okay. Tax-free proceeds to their heirs would be $150,000 minus whatever they took out. So if they've taken out half of it, their heirs will get half of it. Okay, simple as that. Even if the $150,000 is completely depleted, the benefits will continue unlimited. If they both need it at the same time, it pays simultaneously. So it would pay $108,000 a year if they both needed it at the same time. And again, that's just in this example. I'm just, again, sharing a concept with you. So you can do the quick math. The break-even point's really simple. Put in 150 grand, if you're taking out 54 grand a year, 2.8 years, you've already broke even. Every year you happen to be there longer than that, it's just free money. You say, well, I won't be in there longer than that. The average is only 2 or 3 years according to AARP. That's right. Again, tell that my grandmother was in there 11 years. I mean, a lot of people are getting dementia, Alzheimer's, their body's fine, but they just can't take care of themselves and they drag on for years and years and years. Look, we're not even really as concerned about the person going in. Their bills are going to be paid one way or the other. This is really more about the stay-at-home spouse. It's going to be potentially impoverished in this situation because you're used to a certain amount of income coming in, and if all of a sudden most of that's being diverted away to the nursing home or long-term care facility, that could impoverish the stay-at-home spouse. Believe me, this income will be very, very helpful during that time. If you both need it at the same time, that break-even point will of course be cut in half because it's double the benefits. Okay? So if one of you needs it and exhausts the policy, they keep getting the benefits if they die, and then the surviving spouse ends up needing it sometime down the road, they get to use it no matter how long they live, even if it's already been depleted. Again, if you have other questions about it, there's all kinds of little nuances. I'm happy to explain it to you. There is no negative about it. If there was, I would have to bring it up. I'm a fiduciary. Okay? So, medical qualification is required for this type of plan, but it's very lenient. So even if you had a heart attack or stroke, but it was more than 6 months ago, you can still qualify. I can tell you, you won't qualify if you have something right now that means that the insurance company would consider is probably going to put you in long-term care very soon. That's pretty much the gist. So we have a little knockout list we can show you, and if you can read it, and if you answer no to all those things, you qualify. So it's very minimal underwriting, okay? So I'm wrapping up my part here. Shane and I look at ourselves as relationship directors for our clients, essentially a manager of managers, if you will. Okay, so we talked this evening about what we recommend for the safe money allocation, which is the guaranteed income contracts or guaranteed legacy contracts, as an alternative to bonds or CDs or money markets. For the risk money, the actively managed market portfolio with the tactical overlays to protect your downside. That's 100% liquid, okay? Our minimum investment requirement is $200,000, and that's just so that we don't spread ourselves too thin and not be able to offer the level of service that we promise all of our valued clients. We talk to every one of our clients every 4 months and do a full, exhaustive annual review with them every year. And we take a lot of pride in our service. So, some quick questions. People ask these all the time, so I'm going to throw these up to you real quick. You probably have these written down. Transferring an IRA is not a taxable event, so if you have any IRA, 401k, if you move that into our actively managed market portfolio and or the guaranteed income contract, that is not a taxable event. It's a rollover. Same thing with Roth, it would be rollover, okay? If you have a large IRA, you just want to move a portion of it with us, no problem, okay? Medical qualification is not required for any of the things I've talked about this evening, except for that last little hybrid long-term care thing that I just explained. Transfers move directly from custodian to custodian, meaning Shane and I don't typically see or touch your money. Everything goes to third-party transfers, very clean. We handle it all for you, okay? So, if you have an annuity, it may be able to be transferred to one of these guaranteed income contracts that we're talking about. Why am I saying that? Because about 40% of you in the room have a variable annuity that your broker put you in. And you may have been sitting here thinking, this guaranteed income contract sounds similar to that. Boy, it sounds a lot better. Oh, but I can't get out of my variable annuity. I still got a big surrender charge to get out of it. Well, if you would still have to pay a surrender charge to get out of it, this is an if, we may be able to offset that surrender charge with a sign-on bonus. I'm not saying we can, I'm saying we may be able to. We can look at that for you. If we can, we may be able to exchange it for the following improvements. Higher guaranteed lifetime income than staying with the one you have right now. Well, who would want lower guaranteed lifetime income, right? Significantly lower fees. If you got a variable annuity, I promise you, you're paid about 3 or 4% a year in recurring fees. They're ridiculous, all right? Eliminate all future loss potential due to stock market downturn. This contract we're talking about has no market risk, okay? So if you have a variable annuity, don't stay in an inferior annuity the rest of your life because you didn't bother to make a 10-minute phone call to Shane and do an analysis on it, okay? We'll be happy to do that for you. So I talked about the first three. Shane's going to cover the last lovely subject of taxes here before we wrap up. I hear Tony's grumbling. It's coming real soon, I promise. Y'all been a very attentive crowd, and I really appreciate the opportunity to show you what we might be able to do for you individually. If we end up sitting down with you individually and we find that we can add significant value to your family's financial household, we'll make a very professional, formal proposal to you, fully customized, taking a holistic viewpoint. If you decide it makes sense and you decide to work with us, you'll never be sorry that you trusted my brother and I. We will exceed your expectations, I guarantee it. Thank y'all very much, and please welcome Shane for about 10 or 15 more minutes. Thank you.
All right, well, everyone loves talking about taxes, right? I get the good part. Nah, all right, so a couple of questions regarding taxes. First question, which class of taxpayers do you think pays the most in taxes? The informed or the uninformed? Of course, that would be the uninformed. So what we help to do is help you become more informed so we can help you either reduce or even eliminate taxes in certain areas. One way you can do that is to dive into the IRC. That is the Internal Revenue Code. Unfortunately, as you can see here, that's not the easiest way. It's about 70,000 pages and growing. However, I have heard if you have insomnia, you can read it just before you go to bed and it'll put you right to sleep. So here's for that. The second question regarding taxes. Should you begin converting your pre-tax accounts to Roth? A lot of people have considered Roth conversion, right? Most of you probably have. So let's look at that for a second and see if it might make sense. And even if it does look like it makes sense, we'll still need to talk to you individually because it doesn't necessarily for your particular situation. So let's just look at an example. So first of all, let's look at the 2022 federal income tax rates. Most people are familiar with those because of course you gotta pay taxes. And then on the right side, we'll look at the current condition of America as we see it. Government spending more aggressive than ever, no signs of reversing the trend, approaching 30 trillion in national deficit, nearly 200 trillion in unfunded liabilities. Stimulus and bailout culture seems to be the new norm. Does anyone doubt that taxes are going to go up in the future? No, everyone knows or assumes that they are going to go up. So let's look at a comparison between someone that does a Roth conversion as opposed to not doing the Roth conversion. So on the left side, we'll assume they did not do the Roth conversion, and we'll see how it plays out over the rest of their lifetime. Now, there's a few assumptions that we're having to put into this analysis here. So we're gonna assume this is a 65-year-old. We're gonna assume a life expectancy of age 90, and we're gonna assume nominal tax increases as well as nominal rate of return. Now, any of those things change, all the numbers will change. So just giving you an example. All right, on that $500,000 IRA, first thing you have to consider is the taxes paid on the required minimum distributions as you're having to take them out for the rest of your life starting at age 72. As you can see there, that's about $271,000 of that $500,000. Of course, you also have to consider taxes on the growth of your required minimums if you reinvest them, which most people do. There's another $121,000. And then, of course, your heirs have to pay taxes on the rest of the account when you leave it to them, right? So the total taxes paid by your heirs on the remaining balance, another $285,000. So if you add that up, about $678,000 of the from that original $500,000 would be paid in taxes in this scenario. Now let's look at the difference in a Roth conversion. It's real simple. You pay this assumption, by the way. We're assuming that they pay the taxes in 5 years. In this case, they'll pay the tax. They'll take out $100,000 a year from that IRA and put it into a Roth and pay the taxes on it. Now, of course, reduce their tax liability. So the total taxes they'll pay during that 5 years on that $500,000, $160,000. And then here's where the real benefit comes in: 0, 0, $160,000. So you can see a huge difference there in $678 and $160. Now, like I said before, just because this looks really obvious doesn't mean that you should do it. So we'll want to talk to you individually to see if it makes sense for you based on your particular situation, okay? All right, so the question was, should you begin the process of converting to Roth? And the answer is simple as 2 facts. Fact 1, once you turn 72, as I said, you're gonna have to begin paying taxes on the IRA or 401k current value and all future growth through required minimum distributions, RMDs. And on the remaining balance, your heirs, of course, will have to pay the taxes on that. Fact 2, if you convert the Roth to a Roth, you'll only pay the taxes on the current value. All future growth and any remaining balance on your death to your heirs is tax-free. So that's the huge benefit there, of course. All guaranteed income contracts provided by RDS are tax-favored for a number of reasons. 3 areas, actually. The first is the guaranteed lifetime income that you would receive from the guaranteed income contracts is more than enough to satisfy the required minimum distributions for the rest of your life in most cases, okay? Now this second area of tax relief we're referring to is only referring to post-tax money you've already paid the tax on, okay? You can actually invest that type of funds into a guaranteed income contract, and then all of your future growth to the account is deferred, or all the taxes on that is deferred until you decide to start taking money out of that guaranteed income contract. So it kind of works like an IRA in that you have that triple compound effect because you're able to let that gain stay in the account until you take it out. But the benefit of that, of course, is there's no required minimum, so they're not requiring you to take it out at any point. Number 3, we may be able to assist you in possibly eliminating or reducing, I should say, or eliminating taxes on your Social Security. Now, this is something we'd have to talk to you about individually because it depends on your current income as well as how your assets are allocated. But in some cases, we can help people save a significant amount of taxes on their Social Security, or even eliminate taxes altogether on the Social Security, okay? All right, that's all the topics that we're gonna cover this evening. What I wanna do very briefly before we hit the buffet is go over 4 complementary services that we provide in the process of taking on a new family with RDS, okay? The first thing we provide is a risk tolerance comparison and stress test. So we'll start with the risk tolerance comparison. Don will help you with this. You'll take a risk tolerance comparison online, but as I said, he'll help you with it. It's very simple. You answer these questions and it will produce a score page that looks like this. Now this score page will do 2 things. Number 1, it will tell you if you're currently taking the amount of risk that you should be taking based on your risk tolerance. And then number 2, it'll tell us which one of our 25 different portfolios makes the most sense for you, okay? The second part of that, of course, was the stress test. So we can take your most recent brokerage statements, okay, and run them through a Morningstar software package that will actually bring to the surface these different 8 scenarios that you could expect to see in the near future, and it would show you what your account, your positions would look like in these different 8 scenarios that we know are likely or prone to happen in the near future. So most people will want to see that in case, especially, for example, if you didn't have your current portfolio back in, let's say, 2008, this is one of those scenarios. So you'd want to know what it would look like if we experienced that again, okay? All right, second common sense solution we provide is a customized portfolio profile with solution proposals. That's a document that looks like this. Now, this document is twofold. In the beginning, it's going to have a quick snapshot of your financials with charts and graphs and that sort of thing. And then in the back, it'll have any proposals that we've customized proposals specifically for you, okay? You probably wonder how we create that document specifically for you. We actually use a form that looks like this. Everyone has this yellow form in your folder, but I don't want you to get it out just yet because I want to make sure I keep your focus on the screen, and then I'll tell you when to get it out here in just a minute, okay? At the top of the form, it's going to have your name, address, phone number, age, email, things like that. If you would, make sure everything is listed there and accurate. If it's not listed, please list it, and that will help us. And then the second section says evaluation, so there's 4 questions. If you'd like to evaluate our presentation, you can do that very briefly there. And then the middle section says complementary custom analysis. And it says, I need my analysis to include detailed information on how to, and you simply check the boxes here that pertain to you, the things you have more interest in, and that's how we know how to create that document specifically for you, okay? All right, the third thing we provide is a tax reduction analysis report. So for this report, we'll actually take your most recent tax return, and we can run it through, or we scan it into a proprietary software that we have access to, and we'll actually bring to the surface multiple areas of tax relief that you may or may not already be taking advantage of. Also, by using this report, we can run one of those Roth conversion analysis that I just talked about just a few minutes ago, customized specifically for you, okay? Whoop, wrong button. All right, the fourth thing we provide is a in-home 1-hour consultation with Don. He will show up at your home wearing a mask, just to let you know. If you don't need him to wear a mask, please tell him when he gets there because he doesn't want to. He will take it off. But he will show up wearing the mask, okay. So anyway, I want to let you know, first of all, what to expect if you do have this first appointment, okay? It's very simple. There's a few things that we'll do in that first appointment. Of course, first he'll answer any questions you might have had from this evening if we haven't already answered them for you. He'll also utilize that time to ask you a series of questions to try to determine exactly what are your needs and goals moving forward in retirement. And then at some point before you leave, he'll take a quick snapshot of your financials, and he'll utilize all the information gathered in that meeting to determine whether or not he feels that we can add significant value to your family's financial household. If that is the case, then just before he leaves, he'll go ahead and set up a second meeting with you, and then he'll take all that information, we'll take it back to our office. Don and I'll put our heads together and come up with a comprehensive, customized, detailed solution proposal for you, and then he'll bring that back out on the second meeting. Very briefly, what to expect if you have the second meeting, it's very simple. There's only one goal, and that goal is to explain our proposal to you and make sure you understand it, right? And more importantly, that you feel that you understand it. And once we get to that part, you know, what we're expecting is you say, where were you 10 years ago? You know, how do we get this going? If that's the case, we'll be ready to go to work for you. If not, he'll shake your hands and part ways as friends, no hard feelings. That's how we do business. I can assure you, you'll never receive any sort of pressure situation from RDS. As a matter of fact, Don will be mortified if you heard someone accusing him of being pushy, so it's not something you'll ever deal with. All right, as you can see, we have a room full of people here. We had another one of these last week on Tuesday, about the same amount of people, and so Don will be out in the area for about the next 4 to 6 weeks, trying to see everyone that at least wants to have that first meeting, if not a follow-up meeting. And the way that we found to be able to do that before we move on to our next location, which is a couple hours from here, is to actually preset an appointment with everyone that comes to our presentation and then work backwards from there. Now, obviously, we understand that if we preset an appointment time for you, it might not work for you. That's not a problem. Just simply get with me right after you eat and before you leave, and I have a calendar here. We'll find a better date and time for you. But as I said, by presetting them, it allows us to facilitate being able to see everyone in a timely fashion before we move on to our next location. So Don does appointments actually between Monday through Thursday, and then of course he spends time with his family on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So, going back to this yellow form, I'm going to blow up the bottom portion of it so you can see it a little bit better, and we're going to go over these 3 sections real quick. The left side section says total investable assets, And there's only two options, either less than 200,000 or more than 200,000. You probably know why we're asking this, because as Don alluded to a minute ago, if you check less than 200,000, then you're probably not going to be suitable for the type of programs that we utilize, and therefore you'd probably want to cancel that preset appointment time that I'm about to give you. Conversely, if you check more than 200,000, then you are suitable for at least some portion of your investable assets in the programs we utilize, okay? Oh, and just to be clear, a lot of people get confused about this. It is not asking you what are you looking to invest, it's asking you what do you have the ability to invest, okay? All right, the second section is very simple. It says account types, and you simply check the boxes that show what type of accounts your funds are currently allocated to. And then the bottom right-hand section says appointment preference. So there's three options here, and this is gonna tell us what to do with that preset appointment time that I'm about to give you. So of course, we'll need everyone to fill out the yellow form, and especially at least the bottom portion, if nothing else. If you fill out the whole form, it's very simple. It only takes about 1 or 2 minutes to fill out. It's very brief. But as I said, we'll at least need the bottom portion filled out, because otherwise we won't know what to do with that preset appointment time I'm about to give you. So, three options are simple. The first one says date and time is fine. If the date that I'm going to give you in a second works, check that box, and that way Don will know to show up at your home on that date at that time. The next one says need to reschedule. We just talked about that. And then the bottom one says cancel or cancel it. If you already know that you're not suitable for the type of programs we utilize, simply check the box that says cancel it. We'll go ahead and take you off of the calendar, and that way Don will not show up at your home on that date at that time. Because let's face it, that'd probably be pretty uncomfortable. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask you, well, first I'm going to tell you where you can find your preset appointment time. Right after that, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and fill out that yellow form. This is important. After you fill out the yellow form, you want to fold it down in half for privacy, and then place it at the edge of your table. And as you go to the buffet, Don and I will come around and pick those up off of the edge of your table, and I'll also use that time to hand out the notes, okay? So if you're ready, I will tell you where you can find your preset appointment time. And y'all look ready. All right, your preset appointment time is on the back of a business card. Inside of your folder on the right side flap, so if you'll just pull that card off and look at the back of it, that's your preset appointment time. Go ahead and fill out that yellow form. We'll come around and hand out the notes. As soon as you're finished filling out the form, by the way, you can go ahead and hit the buffet, and you can go, if you go on both sides of the buffet, it'll of course go a lot faster, about twice as fast if you do the math.